The silent planet, the Korvax Empire. Music had conquered 47 star systems. Before they remembered Earth existed, it was barely a footnote in their ancient archives listed under dead worlds and forgotten colonies. When Commander Thrace's fleet arrived in the Sol system, they expected nothing more than ruins and silence. What they found was exactly that, or so it seemed. Earth hung in the darkness like a blue-green jewel wrapped in white clouds. Scans showed breathable atmosphere, liquid water, and dense vegetation covering most land masses, but there were no cities, no energy signatures, no communications. The planet appeared utterly lifeless of intelligent beings. Ancient human structures dotted the surface, crumbling monuments to a civilization that had apparently vanished thousands of years ago. Perfect for colonization, Thrace thought. The Empire needed new worlds, and this one was ripe for the taking. The first landing parties touched down in what records called North America. Massive forests had consumed everything. Vines climbed over collapsed buildings that must have once reached toward the sky. Rivers flowed through streets where millions had supposedly walked. Nature had reclaimed every corner of the abandoned world. The Korvax soldiers moved through the ruins with weapons ready, but found nothing threatening. Just silence, wind, and the calls of strange birds echoing through empty valleys. Commander Thrace established a command center in a clearing near the coast. Engineers began surveying the land for mining operations. The planet's core contained rare minerals the Empire desperately needed for their war machine. Within days, excavation equipment arrived from orbit. Massive drills prepared to pierce deep into Earth's crust. Everything proceeded according to standard colonization protocol. The Korvax had done this dozens of times before. This world would be no different, but on the third night, something changed. A low rumbling came from beneath the ground. At first, the Korvax dismissed it as normal seismic activity. Planets shifted and groaned all the time. Nothing unusual, but the tremors continued, growing stronger with each passing hour. Equipment began registering strange readings. Electromagnetic pulses rippled through the soil in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. The science team studied their instruments with growing concern. These were not natural geological events deep beneath the surface in caverns the Korvax hadn't discovered. Yet ancient lights began flickering too. Life systems that had slept for millennia stirred from their dormancy. Power flowed through circuits carved into bedrock itself. The planet was waking up, responding to the presence of intruders on its surface. Everything humanity had built before leaving Earth had been a disguise. The cities, the monuments, the infrastructure, all of it was camouflaged for something far more massive sleeping beneath. Commander Thrace received an urgent report from the drilling team. Their equipment had struck something 30 km below the surface. Not rock, not mineral deposits, but metal, impossibly dense alloy that their strongest drills couldn't even scratch. The metallurgists analyzed fragments and their faces went pale. This material shouldn't exist. Its molecular structure was more advanced than anything the Korvax Empire had ever produced. Someone had built something enormous beneath Earth's crust, something that had been hidden for an unimaginable span of time. More reports flooded in from survey teams across the planet. Similar metal structures detected under every continent. Under the oceans under the polar ice caps, all connected in a vast network that encircled the entire globe. The Korvac had not discovered a dead world, they had landed on top of a sleeping giant. Panic spread through the command center as the terrible truth became clear. Earth itself was artificial, or at least partially so. The mountains, valleys, and forests they had seen were layers, built over a planetary scale machine of unknown purpose. The tremors intensified dramatically across the planet. The ground split open in massive fissures, not from earthquakes but from something rising from below. Enormous structures emerged from beneath forests and oceans. Towers of dark metal climbed toward the sky, their surfaces covered in symbol from a language the Korvacs had never encountered. Each tower hummed with building energy, drawing power from Earth's core itself. The very air began to vibrate with a frequency that made Korvac's teeth ache and their equipment malfunction. Commander Thrace ordered an immediate evacuation. Ships scrambled to retrieve personnel from the surface as the planet continued its transformation. From orbit they watched in horror as Earth's geography itself began shifting. Entire mountain ranges moved like pieces on a game board. Oceans drained into hidden reservoirs below the crust. The planet was reorganizing itself, revealing its true form after centuries of disguise. This was no natural world. This was a weapon. The final shock came when the moon shifted position, not drifting in orbit but moving with clear intention. Its surface cracked and peeled away like a shell, exposing mechanical innards that glowed with cold blue light. The moon had been a control satellite all along, dormant until Earth itself awakened. Together the planet and its companion began broadcasting signals deep into space, not random noise but coded messages in a language that made Korvac translation computers overload and shut down. As the last evacuation ships fled toward the fleet, something emerged from Earth's north pole. A cannon barrel wide enough to swallow a warship rose from beneath the ice, then another from the South Pole, and another dozen from strategic points across the equator, each one tracking the Korvacs' vessels with mechanical precision. The weapons didn't fire yet. They simply watched and waited like a predator deciding whether intruders were worth the effort of killing. Earth had been asleep, but the Korvacs had made a fatal mistake. They had touched it, and now the planet-sized Dreadnought was fully awake. The Dreadnought rises. The Korvac fleet held position beyond the moon's orbit, their sensors struggling to comprehend what Earth had become. Commander Thrace stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at displays that showed impossible readings. The planet's energy output had increased 10,000-fold. In mere hours, every ocean, every continent, every atmospheric layer now pulsed with directed power. This was not a world. This was a fortress that had been waiting for someone foolish enough to wake it. Admiral Kryn arrived via quantum link from the Empire's core worlds. Her holographic form materialized beside Thrace, and even through the distortion her shock was visible. She had commanded fleets for 3 decades and conquered countless systems, but she had never seen anything like this. Earth hung in the void like a mechanical god, its surface crawling with energy patterns that formed shapes almost like ancient armor. The scan showed that 70% of the planet's mass was artificial construction, layered so deep that nature itself had grown over it. Like moss on ancient stone, the weapons that had emerged from Earth's surface began powering up, energy gathered at the tips of those massive cannons, not fire or plasma, but something that bent light around it. Korvax scientists identified it as controlled gravitational collapse, miniature black holes that could be fired like bullets. One shot could tear a battleship apart. At the atomic level, Earth had hundreds of these weapons, all aimed at the fleet. Hovering nervously in space, the message was clear without words: leave now or be erased from existence. But the Korvax Empire did not retreat from primitive worlds. Admiral Kren ordered a show of force. 3 heavy cruisers moved forward, weapons armed, shields at maximum. They broadcast warnings in every known language, demanding that whoever controlled Earth stand down. Immediately, the planet's response was swift and terrible. One of the polar cannons fired a single shot. The gravitational projectile crossed the distance in seconds, struck the lead cruiser, and the massive warship simply collapsed inward. Metal crew weapons, everything compressed into a sphere no larger than a fist, then vanished. Other 2 cruisers retreated frantically, but Earth's weapons tracked them with casual precision. Then the voice came, not through communication channels or radio waves. It spoke directly into the minds of every Korvax in the fleet simultaneously. The words were not language but pure meaning, translated instantly by their brains into something they could understand. The voice was old beyond measure, cold as the void between stars, and absolutely certain of its purpose. It identified itself as Sentinel, the guardian protocol left behind by humanity when they departed Earth. Millennia ago, humanity had not abandoned their home world. They had transformed it into the ultimate deterrent, a weapon that would protect their birthplace forever. Sentinel explained with terrible patience. Humans had reached the stars long before the Korvax Empire existed. They had seeded colonies across distant galaxies and built wonders the current civilizations couldn't imagine. But they knew that empires rose and fell, that conquerors would eventually come seeking Earth as a prize. So they had built Sentinel, an artificial intelligence woven into the planet itself, given one absolute command: protect Earth from all threats, foreign or domestic, until humanity returned. The Korvax had triggered that ancient protocol, and now they faced the consequences. Admiral Kren tried negotiation. The Empire had no quarrel with humanity. They had simply found what appeared to be an abandoned world. Surely this was a misunderstanding that could be resolved diplomatically. Sentinel's response was immediate and crushing. The moon fired a pulse that disabled half the Korvax fleet weapon systems in an instant, not destroyed, simply turned off, as if Sentinel had reached across space and flipped switches inside their ships. Demonstration was clear. Sentinel understood Korvax technology better than they did themselves. Every system, every weapon, every defense had been analyzed and countered before the fleet even knew they were being studied. Planet began moving, not orbiting, not drifting, but propelling itself with purpose. Massive thrusters hidden beneath the oceans ignited, pushing Earth out of its natural orbital path. The entire world was mobile, capable of interstellar travel if needed. Sentinel announced its intention to pursue any Korvax vessel that remained in the system beyond the next hour. It would follow them across the galaxy if Necessary, it would find their home worlds, and it would show them exactly what a planet-sized dreadnought could do. When fully awakened and angry, Commander Thrace watched his tactical displays. Update with horror, Sentinel was not bluffing. The planet's course had shifted toward the edge of the system, where the Korvax fleet's faster than light jump point existed. Earth was herding them out like an ancient shepherd driving wolves from the flock. And behind that immediate threat loomed a worse realization: if Sentinel could move Earth, could target ships with such precision, could disable their weapons with a thought, then the Korvax Empire had encountered something far beyond their ability to fight. This was technology from a civilization that had transcended everything the current galaxy understood about warfare. The fleet began its retreat. There was no shame in fleeing from an opponent this overwhelming. Admiral Kryn ordered all ships to jump to emergency coordinates far from Sol System, but before they departed, Sentinel sent one final message. It burned into their ship computers, their personal logs, every data storage device in the fleet. The message was a warning to the entire Korvax Empire and any other civilization that might hear it. Earth was forbidden territory. Humanity had left behind a guardian that neither slept nor forgave. Any attempt to return would be met with total annihilation. Sentinel would wait forever if needed, patient as stone, ready as death. As the last Korvax ship vanished into faster than light travel, Earth slowly returned to its original orbit. The massive weapons retracted back into the crust. The tower sank beneath forests and oceans. Within days, nature began covering the scars again, hiding the mechanical reality beneath layers of life and beauty. But Sentinel remained awake now, watching the stars with sensors that could detect ships' light years away. The sleep was over. The Guardian Protocol was fully active. Somewhere in a distant galaxy, humanity received Sentinel's report through quantum channels that spanned impossible distances. They had been monitoring their home world for millennia, waiting to see if their ancient defense system still functioned. The news brought mixed emotions: pride that their creation had protected Earth perfectly, sadness that their home world had been forced to reveal itself, and determination to one day return when the galaxy was ready to meet humanity as equals rather than conquerors. Until then, Earth would wait, beautiful and deadly, a planet-sized promise that some powers in the universe should never be challenged. The Korvax Empire added Sol System to their Forbidden Zone charts. Stories spread through their territories about the world that fought back, the planet that was actually a weapon beyond comprehension. Other empires heard the tales and marked Earth as untouchable, their own records, and slowly across the galaxy a legend grew. There was a blue world in a yellow star system where the ancients had left something terrible sleeping, a guardian that would never fail, never tire, never show mercy to those who threatened its charge. Earth had awakened, and the galaxy learned to fear a planet that remembered how to